Hello students, today's lecture is on homeostasis. Homeostasis is a key concept in physiology, and essentially the idea is that we maintain a certain stable internal environment irregardless of our outside environment. A classic example of this is our body temperature. Our body temperature always is around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. There are many other physiological parameters that we maintain in our body, pretty much all of them. For example, blood pressure, blood glucose levels, respiratory rate, heart rate, muscle tone, blood ion levels, blood cholesterol levels. All of these different physiological parameters we maintain at a certain stable level. Now notice that, let's take the example of body temperature, but this is true of all physiological variables, such as blood pressure or blood glucose or any of the others I've mentioned or many others that we'll get into over the course of the semester. We don't maintain that at just a steady flat rate. It's not just at 98.6 degrees. Rather, it varies a little bit up and down around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. So it'll go up a little bit, and then it'll go down a little bit. The analogy for this is the heating and cooling in this room. So I have the thermostat set at 68 degrees Fahrenheit. As the temperature in the room rises, maybe up to 69 degrees Fahrenheit, that will turn on the air conditioner. And when the air conditioner turns on, that will start to lower the temperature. And that lower temperature, though, that temperature will lower down to 67 degrees. And when the temperature gets down to 67 degrees, the air conditioner will go off. And then slowly the temperature will rise. It will rise back up to 68. It will rise up to 69 degrees Fahrenheit. And that will turn the air conditioner back on. And the air conditioner will then lower the temperature. It will lower it back to like 67 degrees Celsius. And the air conditioner will turn off. We have the same thing going on with body temperature. Our body temperature starts to rise a little bit. Our body initiates mechanisms that brings the body temperature back down to normal, but it always overshoots a little bit. In that case, when it overshoots a little bit, our body initiates other mechanisms to bring it back up. And so what we see is, in homeostasis, we see this oscillation where body temperature goes up a little bit, and then body temperature comes back down a little bit, and then body temperature goes up a little bit, and body temperature comes back down a little bit. So our body temperature, it's always around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, but it oscillates around that. And this is also true of blood pressure, blood glucose, any of the physiological parameters in the body. Now, how do we control? What are the components of a homeostatic control mechanism? How do we control this? We have three main components. Number one, we have a receptor. Number two, we have a control center. And number three, we have an effector. The receptor is a sensor. It's going to measure the stimulus. It's going to measure and monitor the environment. So, for example, in the case of body temperature, we have temperature receptors in our skin and also in our lower brain that are measuring our body temperature. In the case of blood pressure, we have blood pressure receptors located near the heart and around the heart that are measuring blood pressure. The next component is the control center. And our control center is located in the brain. And for most of the functions we'll be talking about, in which we have unconscious controls, such as respiratory rate, heart rate, blood pressure, body temperature, that control center resides in the hypothalamus of the brain. And the control center is going to take information, in from the receptors. It's going to analyze and integrate that information, and then it's going to send information out to the effector. And the effector is the component that's going to make the change. It's going to create the change. So in the case of body temperature regulation, if our body is sensing that it's getting too hot, what do? We start to sweat. So in that case, the effector are the sweat glands. Or say it's really cold out. What does our body do? We start to shiver. So in that case, our muscles are the effector. Our muscles start to shiver to generate body heat. I need you to know each one of these components and what these components do. Again, the receptor, the control center, and the effector. Let's take a closer look at them. Again, here is which starts off with the receptor, and the receptor is measuring a stimulus. It's measuring a change. It could be, for example, body temperature. And that receptor sends information along what is called the afferent pathway into the control center. And the control center is located in the lower brain, and the control center analyzes the information that the receptor has sent it. And the control center then makes a decision, and it sends output, it sends information out the efferent pathway to the effector and dictates what the effector's response should be. So again, let's take a look at it again. First of all, we have a stimulus. We have some kind of change. It could be some kind of change in body temperature or blood pressure or blood glucose levels. That change, that stimulus is measured by the receptor. The receptor sends information about that change, about that stimulus, to the control center via a afferent pathway, a pathway going into the control center. The control center in the brain, it analyzes that information and it makes decisions, and it then sends information or output out the efferent pathway to an effector and telling the effector, this is the response that I want from you as an effector in order to balance or come back to or create a change that's in response to the stimulus. And so that is homeostasis, and those are the components of homeostasis. Thank you.